Okay, 1 second. Oops. Okay. This little presenter box is in my way. Okay, can we all see that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, and I don't have the, I don't know what the fields that represent this information look like in the data set because I don't have it open in front of me right now, but this is for the general plan land use data. So the description and the code, and then we have our maximum dwelling units or maximum FAR, depending. So residential designations have a maximum dwelling units per acre. Non-residential have an FAR per acre. And then we also have, I think there's a field for maximum, and then there's a field for typical. And then I don't recall if there's a field for population density. Maybe one of you guys can answer that for me.
So in the data, right, if there is a, okay, let's take a look at the MXD, and then we can compare the fields over there. So does see GIS on the right side. If you see on the folder connections, well, actually let's request your keyboard and mouse.
Okay.
And right here, I think this is the MXD that we had last.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, once it opens up, we'll be able to take a look at the layer. We also, what we are noticing is, or maybe it's more of a question, is that information is for every land use, which is, say, for example, agricultural / rural. This is the description part, correct? And then this is the code.
Mm-hmm.
And then this field is present, and it's always this value. This field is present.
I think it's actually these two columns. Those actually represent 4 fields. I think there's and we can confirm this when we take a look at the data. But I think there's a field for maximum dwelling units per acre. There's a field for maximum FAR per acre, and then so that's 2 fields. And then there's again 2 fields for typical. One for dwelling units per acre, and then one for FAR per acre.
That's correct. 4 different fields. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see how.
And there's a 5th one for the maximum as well, I think.
Okay. So planning, and not the topology. Is that the zoning official? Is that correct?
So we're talking about the general plan land use, not the zoning at this point. The zoning doesn't have quite as many. I don't believe it has quite as many.
Turn off the zoning layer, check off the zoning. So you don't have as much, yeah.
Okay, so I see that broken down into like 4 fields. Typical is the same as average, right?
I am pretty sure that it is, but we might need to. I don't know if is Ken on this call? Do you, or maybe Lisa knows if we recall
what
it's
whether or not in the general plan itself we have a typical land use intensity, either dwelling units per acre or FAR per acre, but then in the data we have average. Are those the same, typical and average?
Well,
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think if I recall also is that you guys had kind of started to try to standardize certain general plan land uses with these standards for maximum dwelling units, as well as what was kind of the typical.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's...
I don't like that they did that when they did the last general plan, because
yes,
we had to do some build out analysis, and
Right.
you have a range. What do you go with? The low end or the high end or somewhere in the middle? I don't know. I don't know why they did it like that. Maybe there was a good reason for it, but I wasn't around for it, so I don't know.
Right.
Sorry, I'm gonna
Well, I
steal my
think-
cursor for
And,
1 second.
Ted might have been around when it was happening, but I think it like you say, I think in the next round there may be the term range may make more sense, but I think they were also trying to define a limit value as well as then a special max where there were some exceptions maybe.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so I guess for the purposes of this exercise, well, I don't know. Maybe we can compare. I'm gonna
The reason why I'm asking is because this is what I think the intent of us asking you for this information is that if you were to, let's say, create a new general plan polygon somewhere, and you assign it, let's say, MDR. I'm just giving you an example, right? As soon as you give it MDR, the tool that we have called Attribute Assistant is going to look up into a table and then assign those remaining values. Because it's MDR, then it gives you the maximum dwelling units per acre, and then it's going to give you the average. So where do we get that average from? Really, that would be our question. Should we look at this typical values and bring it over there, or is it going to be something else? So that's our intent behind.
Yeah, I know. I get that. I think I agree that we want to make sure that we get the right. it pulls the right information over.
Right, and I think there is, like, for example, if you look at the special max, that for the high density residential, my impression is that the maximums are higher for the higher density, right?
Well, let's see. Let's look
And
at
then
it.
they don't have them for other see, they should have.
Okay, so we've got high density residential, 29 dwelling units per acre under max. So 29 dwelling units per acre under max here. Okay, there is no FAR because it's residential. The average here is shown as 20 per acre in the table, 20 per acre. Okay, so then in this instance, in table LU3, the typical per acre in the data is represented as average per acre. So I think we can agree that that's confirmed. The special max, I believe, has to do with the planned residential development. So under certain circumstances, you can apply for a special permit to exceed the maximum, but there's another maximum above that which you cannot go, and that's the PRD, planned residential development. I believe it only applies to residential zones. Yeah, there's no special, extra level of density for like very high density residential. It's only in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 residential land uses that you have that with PRD condition, which
So Ted, I think I sent you a copy, and Matt, I don't know if I did, but I sent a link to Ted to send to the consultants of this page.
Posted on the comments here.
Okay.
Okay. So, Letha, does that make sense for the fields? Which columns in this table, how they equate to fields in the data?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing also is that you can change that information in that attribute assistant at any point of time.
Oh, okay.
And that's something that you can ask. Maybe at this point, I think Ted would be responsible for that, or Ken. We'll give them documentation on how to change that because they are like admin level tables. But they should
Hmm.
be, if, say, for example, the things change down the road, like you may have a different, like max dwelling unit per acre or something,
Hmm.
then they can always help you with that change. It's so let's do one thing. That so now that we have this information, then Lata can go and update the attribute assistant. But for today, we will assume that the attribute assistant, it just works as
Hmm.
in the. You may not see any changes like today that these automatically get filled up. Like when you change the zone, the land use from one polygon from one land use to another, it won't show up today automatically, but in the future, like near future, I would say in a couple of days, it would do that for you. Okay.
Okay.
um, so with that said, let's start off on the training. What I would like to do is mm, show my screen and go through a PowerPoint, and we are assuming that I mean, um, even for the, since we're recording this, maybe um, traffic can look at this recording and go from there, hopefully.
Also, Aretha, I was just going to mention,
Mhm.
Matt, if you have you already received the document that Matt was showing you, a copy of that?
Yeah, I just sent.
You just sent it to them
the
in
table. I
chat.
just sent it to Letta. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. I just wanted to be sure, so I don't have to do it again.
Yes, I got it.
So I think, Harita, I made you the presenter, so you should be able to share your screen now.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just about to open up my
Mhm.
PowerPoint. So just okay. Can everybody see the screen?
Mhm.
Okay. So welcome to the training, the GIS editor training. I want to make sure that everybody has a copy of the manual before we proceed ahead. We have, um, basically two manuals in use today. One is by the planning, and then the other one for the traffic. I'm going to open both of them on my side and then show. But if you could please confirm that you have these editor manuals, that will be great. This
I don't think I've ever seen this.
Okay, it it's available in the same location. So let's see. Let's make sure that you get it first, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So Matt, can I change you to be the presenter again? For a second.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Lisa, were you able to get to those documents?
Yes, I have it. Yeah.
Okay. So it's
And
gonna
I
be
actually
in.
Correct.
into
That's the location.
I even turned it into a PDF, although we could
From
probably wait till
DCSE.
it's corrected or
It would be in planning and traffic. There should be a Word document. Oh yeah, that's better. PDF would be better for you.
Very good. All right.
Okay, so this is the document that will follow along today.
You can copy that to your folder. I don't know how that is it easier.
Yeah, if you have it locally, it's easier. Sometimes maybe slow over the network to get to things.
Hmm.
So we are going to be we combined these two groups because we thought that there's basically a common layer that everybody edits, and the remaining edits are relatively very simple, as far as like as compared with the other kind of edits that everybody else does. Also, we understand that planning is almost like ready to move forward with ArcGIS Pro. Most of the editing, like the basics of editing, would kind of be the same, but I also know that Matt, you probably are very comfortable in using Pro already, correct?
Sorry, yes. Yeah, I use Pro as often as I can get away with it.
Right. Okay. So you will find that there will be some similarities and some differences um, between Pro and ArcGIS Desktop. But it's just another way of doing things, and we just have to, I guess, get through this training for you. You may or may not use ArcGIS Desktop, maybe
No,
in a month.
it'll be good for me to know both, I think. So this is useful.
Right, data wise, they're all the fundamentals of data do not change for you. So when you're editing in ArcGIS Desktop, if you look at the data format is the same, your quality control methodology would kind of be the same and everything. So that's something to keep in mind. 1 second, sorry. Okay, so what we will be going through will be the training format. We'll take a look at your GIS data, your editing environment, editing workflows, and quality control. We may not cover everything today, especially the quality control part is scheduled for, I think it's Thursday, but it's a different training session. So we may get to some. Then we'll maybe look at the basics at that point. So we have this training format, like we will look at the PowerPoint, but we will also go through the editor manual and also do some hands-on exercises, some of the edits that you do in on your day-to-day workflows for maintaining your data. Okay, so that's the plan. This we'll come back to the PowerPoint, then we'll go into the document, and from there we'll go and look at a demo on how that's done. Okay, so the topic one we're going to look at is knowing your GIS. We will explore the data as part of the this exercise and learn about your environment and the data. Um, I said questions in the workbook, but we actually will have questions as we come along, as we walk alongside the data. Okay. Um, so in the editing environment at the city of Riverside, your data is in geodatabase format. It is multi-versioned, or data sets are registered as versioned, and then that it means that there is complexity in when you edit the data. You just can't go and double click and then start editing the data or something like that. There is a little bit of process as far as versioning is concerned to be followed in order to edit the data. You have it's SQL server based geodatabase that you have. This is all like um, something good to know, but it's not really, it doesn't affect any way the way you look at the data or you edit the data. Okay, just to know that this is SQL server based. um, and then you have several geodatabases. You have the citywide editing geodatabase, you have the data reviewer publishing, and then you have the workflow manager, and then you have utilities geodatabase, which are all in 10.7.1, and then you have the utilities and fiber, which are in 10.6.1. um, just good to know information, nothing that's going to affect your editing workflows and everything. So what you will use to maintain your GIS data is that you will be using the ArcGIS Desktop 10.6.1, well, actually 10.7.1. And if um, you are able to and you can connect to and everything in Pro, maybe you will be using Pro also, but I'm just, for sake of this training, we're going to be using an MXD. there's going to be something called Attribute Assistant, which we installed last time on your computers. And then we have the ArcGIS Data Reviewer, which we will look at in the next session. Okay. Now, your learning resources are, we have the editor manuals for you, and we will be giving you a quick guide, which is just like a cheat sheet of how your versioning goes, and then how do you maintain, have a version, and then how do you reconcile and post, and then also you will have things like keyboard shortcuts and those kind of things. You also have Esri help files. Anytime if you're inside ArcMap, you press F1, you get all of the help file information associated with it. We have this training, and we have trainings from Esri that you might be able to leverage. And people wise, your colleagues who are already knowledgeable in ArcGIS desktop, and we will be able to help you support. DCSE can support you until the completion of this project. Industry, there is industry focus groups for planning, and even like there may be some apps and maps that they showcase for your specific industry. You should look at that on the Esri resource, on the Esri website, especially if you go to their support. Well, it's not the support, but basically the mm, I'm trying to think of the word, but there is a industry forum for planning and traffic. So mm, so there's a lot of other people maintaining their data in the planning groups in various agencies, just like you, and they all form these kind of groups on there. So it's something good to plug into. Okay, and then there's this online forums that you might get more information on. Okay, any questions on this so far?
No, I just I wanted to just make everyone aware that I'm pretty sure the city team knows this, but I have GIS experience, but I was not formally trained in it. So there's somewhat of a learning curve for me that I try to climb as quickly as I can. And Lisa and Ted and Ken and the team are huge helps to me all the time. But just want to, so you guys have that for my background. So I might need to stop and ask questions. I hope that's okay.
So it's all going to
No
be on
problem.
your shoulders, Matt. Everything is going to be up to you. We're going to defer to you. You tell us what we need to do.
Okay.
I mean, you're just there to tell us what we need to do from it comes to the point for general plan and zoning. But we're here to assist you and make you like us.
All right. Let's get into it.
So basically, ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
Yes, questions are welcome anytime, especially that we don't have the traffic team, so it's going to be mainly your focus, and then we'll quickly breeze through the traffic layers. There's just a few of them right there.
I feel
So,
very special.
yes. Uh, so let's
As well,
take a go ahead. Sorry.
no, I just said as well you should.
Yeah. So we have this, let's take a look at your geodatabase. So I'll keep this screen on my side, but we'll walk through all of these, right? And we'll see what different things that you may have available, the different kinds of data sets and everything. In the context that you may have to follow along when you're looking at it, if you look at your editor manual, we're kind of looking at pages 1 and 2, where we talk about the different data sets that you have and the key features of geodatabase. That's kind of what we're looking at in this on this slide, and the next maybe. Okay, so I think we can switch to your screen right now, Matt, or we can show it on our side too, whichever way you like.
Okay. So there's not going to be anything in the presentation because I can't see the presentation while I'm sharing my screen. So, but that's okay, right?
Yeah. I'll walk through. Well, the other option is we can connect to this and then we can kind of show them side by side. I think that's something we can do. Lata, are you already connected to the city environment?
No, I think Adam was, but I can connect. It shouldn't take longer. Let me connect.
Yeah, I think the goal would be to show this PowerPoint and the um,
Okay, let
and the
me
screen.
connect it.
That's why. But if you do connect, then you'll have to open up the PowerPoint also, so we can have
Okay,
them all on the same screen. Because when we show
okay.
one person's screen, we cannot show the other. So that's why.
Yeah, I'll switch.
Okay, we'll give a minute for Lata to connect. But in the meanwhile, um, we would like to go over the document also. What we have here is basically about the planning GIS data in this one, and on the other document we have about the traffic. But let me go over the planning data, and we'll come back to the traffic one later. Right now, if you look at planning, you have one main data set, which is a planning data set, in which you have several layers, and then you have a topology. All of your layers are polygon layers. Okay, and then the other data set that we anticipate you might edit is the transportation planning, which has got the circulation current feature class, which is a line feature class. Correct?
Okay.
And there are other reference data sets. There is a planning reference data set, there is cadastral data, and all of those things. Those are all also in
Right.
your MXD, or your map document, as we call it. Your spatial, I mean, basically you're using the NGVD 29 for the vertical, and then the NAD 83 California Zone 6 state plane coordinate system for the horizontal, and the units are in feet. That's for your entire data. All of your data is in that format. It's defined at the feature data set level. So I'll show once we connect how this shows up on this information shows up on your feature data set. Okay. Um, well, as far as
Just
like
opening.
your opening, okay.
The
Um,
ArcGIS is opening, sorry. Mhm.
no problem. Editing the data sets, you have the following layers. You have the GP land use official, and I'm showing planning slash because it's under the planning data set. So GP land use official, it's a polygon, and it's the official land use feature class. So this is, I think, one of the main layers that you are maintaining on a regular basis. If somebody
Yeah.
comes and requests you for a zone change and it's officially approved, is that at that point you go and change it, or do you? Mhm.
Yes. One after there's our land use regulations they exist on two levels. There's the general plan land use and then the zoning. And I think we talked about this last time we spoke. We oftentimes are changing both when we're making changes. Sometimes we're only editing one, but very often it's going to be both for a single project. And almost everything that we do is like project based, unless we're doing some kind of research or analysis, which we would not be editing the official layers to do that kind of work. So
Right. Okay. So that's one layer there, GP land use official, and then GPLU proposed changes current. That's for, is it like for what if scenarios that you want to evaluate, correct? The
yeah,
GPLU proposed.
that's how I kind of conceive of it. I don't know if Ken or Lisa have any other thoughts about how that how that layer is conceived of, but typically, yeah, it's to me that's where you would do kind of more hypothetical.
Yeah. And then there is the planning projects, which is probably the project boundary. for any projects that you may have, like a development project. Is that correct?
Yeah, we use that one to map the location of ongoing development projects.
Okay. And then, so I didn't find these descriptions are coming from your data, so there wasn't any. I mean,
I think that's a pretty new layer.
mhm.
It's kind of still under development, which is could be why there's no description.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there was no data for it. It's just a blank one.
So
Mm.
I'm going to track changes, and then that way we'll keep on. But I'll just remember that this is a new one that I added here. Okay. So the next one is the specific plans official. This is where you have specific plans. Either I think that as long as they're within your area, you have this is a specific plan boundary, correct? And
Yeah, it's a focused area planning. So it's larger than an individual development project site, but it's not as comprehensive as the citywide zoning or general plan. It's sort of
right. Okay, and that one also has the zoning code and those kind of things, but also how many planned dwelling units and um, other such information, right? It's got attributes on that. Hello? Hello?
I can hear you now. Okay. You were speaking about the specific plans
Hello?
layer.
Hello?
Ted?
Hello? Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So we'll look more into the attributes over there on that layer, and then the
No, I had a question about that, maybe Matt, that might be worth thinking about, because I know that you've been working a little bit with the Permits Plus group, and my impression that some of the projects that are being proposed might start there and end up as an APN or a group of APNs that define a development proposed project. And do you envision that that would be a valid source for filling in the planning
Well, not
projects?
not Permits Plus, because that's
Or not Permits Plus, sorry, it'd be Posse.
Yeah. It could be. Right now we're doing it the hard way, which is myself and Veronica maintain an Excel spreadsheet by hand.
That's why I want to kind of plant the seed. Because the better way would be.
I want to start editing on the planning projects and literally copy the service that's out there right now into that data set, and then copy her new additions and that data.
I just
Understood.
to make sure because I'm not trying to get it done for tomorrow. It should have conclusion that tomorrow because it's a very simple.
Sorry, Harry. I think we can move on or keep going.
can you hear me? Hello?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I think we will go. We have planning, zoning official is what's the difference between, so this is for depicting zoning and combining zones for a property. That's what it says. So that's a zoning official.
I would clarify that is to depict base and overlay zones
Okay.
instead of combining zones. We don't really use the
Base
term combining
and
zones.
overlaid zones.
Overlay, LAY.
Overlay zones. Okay. I think I will remove this. Oh. So this part is gone. And that's for a specific property or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's all properties within the city. It's all of our land is zoned, but yeah, you can view the zoning
Right.
attributes for an individual property.
Okay. And then we have the planning topology. This is topology with rules to ensure data integrity. Um, and then we have circulation current, which is part of the transportation planning data set. And that's basically your streets, right? Transportation information. It says what kind of a street it is and those and from where to where it goes and what's the name of the street and so on. And then there is the topology that's associated with the transportation circulation current layer. Okay.
All right.
Okay. The next one that we have, we're talking about the key features of geodatabase. At this point, I just want to see, Lata, is that ready? And can we maybe,
You can make me the presenter.
okay. Do you also have the PowerPoint open?
Correct.
Okay, great. So I will make you the presenter.
Okay. So I have PowerPoint and I have the Word document.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, all in one. Okay. Let me request your keyboard and mouse so that I can. Okay. I'm going to minimize this for a second. And we are looking at the GIS, the geodatabase, the database connection, feature datasets, and all of these things. First of all, let's look at the datasets and your coordinate system, right? So going to, are we looking at, we just wanted to show it to you in this
Yeah,
catalog.
catalog.
Okay. So in the catalog, what we have is this is your database connection. You saw that we were able to make a database connection, and on this machine where DCSE is working at, you will see a lot of connections because we have different database access and so on. You may or may not be able to see all of these data sets. But definitely your data sets which you are going to be editing, you should have privileges to, which I think we tested last time if you were able to edit or not. So planning is your data set, right? And how you get to the um, properties is basically you have this, you go to the properties and you can see the XY coordinate system being defined as the NAD 83 state plane zone 6. So this is your XY coordinate system. And then if you go and look at the Z coordinate system, it is the NGVD 1929. I don't think you work with it a whole lot as far as like the vertical is concerned at this point of time, but maybe sometime soon in the future you will, especially in ArcGIS Pro, doing something in 3D and so on. Okay, maybe something that you can think about. There will be other things you might come up
Yeah,
with.
so
We do need to stay in the 1929 vertical though for the
Yeah.
database to be.
to answer that, Matt's going to be working with ArcGIS Urban. ArcGIS Urban is a 3D platform.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe they do have something like buildings with, showing the building heights and those kind of things, right? Um, to some extent.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, we don't know the full thing because the project just started. Lisa's working on getting the data together, and Matt's our point person for the city, and probably, I assume, for planning as well. And we're just there to support it.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty cool demos, especially planning related, where they use the 3D pixels. They don't call them pixels but something else, but they show the height based on, like, I don't know, land use, and sometimes they actually show the buildings themselves as with extrude the buildings to the specific height and do like a linear line of sight and those kind of things. But in any case, this one is, but this one is important to know at any point of time if you're exchanging data, when you're sending a layer to somebody else, especially in planning. That might happen a lot, collaborating with other agencies. You just need to know that this is your coordinate system. So if you send it to somebody else who is not using the same coordinate system or bringing in their data, it may not line up. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so that's where this gets important for you. Okay. Um, so that's about the coordinate system. We saw that data set. Then this is your transportation planning data set right down here. You do have privileges too. You should have privileges to edit it, in which you have just the circulation current layer and then the transportation planning. I'll show you where we got all descriptions from. If you click on the description over here, you will have all that summary and limits, credits, those kind of things, like who can use this and who cannot, but it's just some metadata as we call it. Okay. Then the other thing is about topology. Let's look at the planning topology. Okay, for a quick minute, the rules and everything else that's in there. Going to planning, and this is the planning topology. Go to properties, and everything's ranked 1 right now. But if you do want to give more priority for one layer, like saying one layer is more accurate as compared to the other layers, then you could give it the highest ranking, and the remaining ones get to a lower rank. So 1 is higher, and 2 is lower than that in the rank. So that's something that you can do. And then right now the rules that you have are all of these, and we have put that in the document also, is that you have the zoning official must not overlap, it must not have gaps. And among GP land use official, it must not have gaps and must not overlap. And specific plans official must not overlap. GP LU proposed changes current must not overlap, and planning projects must not overlap. Do we know what this
Right.
must not overlap means?
I was just going to ask, must not overlap, must not have gaps with what? With itself?
Itself. Right now with itself.
Okay.
You can make a rule saying that zoning official edge must be coincident with GP land use official, official, something like that. There's tons of rules that you can make, but that needs to be done by like somebody who has admin privileges to the data set. So if you can tell what other rules that you might want, you can always ask them to be added, and I think Ted can do that. As of now, if there's no other feature class listed over here, then it means that it's just with itself. Okay, so that's what these rules are.
Yeah, so regarding that, I didn't know, I think some of these rules are going to be applied over time. So at this point, we just kind of wanted to look at, let's just clean up zoning itself. Let's just clean up general plan, specific plan, whatever project, planning projects. At some point, though, it'd be really, really nice. And this is something that maybe even the housing group, Brian Sims, can even help with at some level, will be, what's the best way to, I do think that in our future, there are some rules that are applicable between general plan and zoning on how they line up. But in this regard, I didn't apply any. So maybe like after a year, we're going to take the system down like next December, and we're going to make a bunch of changes to it. And maybe by that time, we'll have a better understanding of how the topology relationships will work between zoning and GP. I think we'll be able to look at it. We'll understand it a lot better because we'll be in there fixing things. There's really not that many problems in your data in itself, but there are some issues where general plan and zoning don't align with one another. And
well, and the one of the things to remember too is that that's not always an issue. It might be, or a data issue. Sometimes it may be like, it may just be like that, but I think we would need to, so I don't want to, and maybe I'm overstating the problem, but I think we need to be careful about like what kinds of rules we write into it, because it could be like kind of smoothing over some edges that are not necessarily meant to be smoothed over.
Yeah. Like the reason I haven't applied anything was how exactly the zoning goes into the right of way, or maybe it's general plan, whatever's the one that doesn't have right of ways, because it can go to the center line, it can go to the curve, it can go to the opposite curve. So that's the one there. That's why I never applied it. If it was just that zoning and general plan need to follow each other, the way use code and property use, property IDs in the county work together in tandem, where you literally, the overall arching boundary of one zone versus one GP for residential will follow each other. It's just going to be subdivided into multiple residential for zoning. I didn't want to overstep on that yet. And I think once we identify, okay, well, to me, the way I would apply it would be, if the rule is good 60, 70% of the time, then I would apply it. Because the other 30% of the time, we will just mark it as an exception.
Yes, so the exceptions are available. You can always mark something as an exception, and at least though it will flag it for you, and then you can go and take.
So we don't have to fix the areas to go into the right of way. We can just say, oh, that's all exceptions.
Got it. Yeah, I think, Ted, we had a discussion at one point about like zoning and right-of-way boundaries, how I don't know if this is a rule that can be set up, but if essentially the right-of-way doesn't have a zoning designation, but if that right-of-way is vacated, it's supposed to take on the zoning designation of the property directly adjacent to it up to the center line.
Yeah, so we can't do topology between planning in the planning feature data set and cadastral parcels in the cadastral feature data set. There is something that we might be able to play with it to some level, and this is really more of a question for Cash, is in cadastral, you can build associations. So if we make an adjustment in cadastral, conceptually you can adjust data data sets. I don't know if we're really looking at that yet for cadastral. I mean, that might be something we look at in a year. It's like almost, I don't want to take too big of a step for everybody of what we can do in ArcMap versus what we could do in the old world. But like I said, it's going to be flexible. We're gonna take the system down, and we're probably going to take it down in a couple months. But then we'll probably take it down in a year to make bigger changes. And then also for planning, my plan for planning is to move you guys to Pro. So as part of that migration, that might even force a takedown on the system in the city, because 3 groups are all going to be on the same database. But
so not all training today is kind of wasted because you're moving to Pro. This is still relevant. I mean, you still have topology, you still have your data, attributes, everything's the same, right? So something to remember.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that pretty much to me, it comes down to just studying each rule and how it applies. I'd probably pull, because I'm going to be editing zoning and general plan. So is Lisa. And so are you. So we're not pulling ourselves out. I'm looking to implement and edit everybody's data. For me to understand everything, I gotta edit it. Editing is like foundational understanding for any GIS analyst in the city. You got to do editing. Mm-hmm. Maybe people don't like it, but to me, it really gets you. You tie yourself into the data. You really understand the data at that point and the relationships that exist. But I want to be able to apply all the different rules and just see when I can focus on it. And I can only focus on that when we move forward. It's kind of like, let's pass the law and see what's in the law after we pass it. Let's implement everything and we'll see what's needed after we implement it. Go safe right now. And then as we need to make changes, we'll come back and we'll make changes. We're always going to have the flexibility to do that. So, like I said, I just don't want to overstep and then be like, oh, that was a bad rule, or I messed up the data or whatever. I'd rather be safe, test, verify, because what I'm going to do when 2.7 ships in, 2.7's coming out in like 3 weeks, it's the beta. and we're going to test your workflows in it. So maybe we'll play with all the different rules at that point and look for stuff that we can flag, mark down, and say, okay, when we take the system down, we're going to implement these additional rules.
All right.
Right, and you might be able to do something like even in data reviewer, but we'll check on that if you wanted to do like between right of ways and these layers, something to look at. I will cancel this out for a moment and go back to my
Now,
PowerPoint.
that seems more like an attribute assistant rule that you would apply. If this is marked as this, can you make sure this happens?
Yeah, or attribute assistant rule. Yeah, something to
Yeah.
look at. But I'll that's something for Lata to look at. We'll come back when we look at Matt's screen, if somebody or if Matt can explain, what it is. It's something that we can look at if it's going to be an attribute assistant. The other thing we wanted to show is that when we looked at it, we had different types of layers, but most of your layers, in planning, you're dealing only with polygons and a line layer, so geometry wise. But on the traffic side, you have a point layer, a couple of point layers too, I think, and an annotation layer. Okay, so surprisingly enough, there are no annotation layers at all in the planning data anywhere. That makes me
Is that surprising? Why is that surprising?
well, because people use it for mapping. I mean, but if you're going to use labeling, you're going to be okay. You're not map centric, right? You're not paper map centric, right? Are you
No.
do you have to make a lot of paper maps? Sometimes they make this huge land use maps like wall maps or something, and then they want a specific, because they don't want the label to disappear, they will make annotations, and for that they have these layers that they put together for mapping purposes. So I thought you may have had some annotation layers because of that. Uh, so you can always create the annotation layers, down the line if you should find the need. But for now, you don't have any annotation layers.
Yeah, we
But
produce maps like that on such a rare kind of basis that it would probably be done on a project specific, like on an as needed kind of,
right. And you can do labeling, and labeling can take you very far, as far with being able to show all of the labels, this Maplex labeling engine and those kind of things. And of course, ArcGIS Pro has even better labeling capabilities, so you may really not need annotations at all to
The other challenge that we would have with annotation, Matt, for your scenario is that if you wanted to make maps for recently updated general plan and zoning areas that you work on before the data can be updated from your version to the main data sets, any sort of annotation wouldn't be updated to reflect new changes in labeling until it was all pushed up to the full database. So some of the merit of having your own internal tracking of areas that were changed that you want to make sure are being reflected in larger maps or maybe wall maps. That's something that, when someone's looking at a big map, they probably aren't going to pay attention to little details. It just depends on where that data is being presented. If it's public, it could be a concern. So my point is that unless we're updating the data every quarter in the main database that's being consumed by GeoCortex, the new land use and zoning values that are updated by your editing won't be reflected there unless we figure out a way for that to happen. So for example, normally the workflow would be you do some modifications to say 3 different ordinances or resolutions in say 2 months. and in a quarter time frame, that data gets pushed up to the SDE database. That's the main data set. Then that would be then it would be pushed up as Ted deems appropriate, and timing is appropriate to be reflected in the data being consumed by GeoCortex. And
Okay, yeah, because a quarter, like, that's, I should hope that it's not done quarterly, because that's too long.
I know, well, that's
We
why,
don't,
that's why I'm
we
bringing
don't want
it up.
planners using data from last quarter. We want
Right,
planners
exactly.
using data that's current as of today.
Right,
So-
that's why I want that to be clear, that right now, because at least until January, Ted, you can comment on this, because my impression is that we weren't going to be doing updates that often.
Well, no, it's as soon as we're ready to go live after this training, then what I have to do is I just have to set up the planning data in production, and I think it's already there, but I might have to kill it and re-add it if we have to add something. But I got to build a replica, and
Okay.
I don't have to. I'm not contingent on building a replica before you guys can start editing. Once you guys get to training, you guys can start editing in the planning world.
So Ted, I guess the question is, right now, I don't believe the land use and zoning have an annotation layer.
And they never had an annotation layer.
I don't really see why they would need one.
Yeah, you don't need anno. You would just use labels. So
Yeah, that's right.
annotation keeps it like it's if you needed to create like super detailed maps that you had to submit to the state of California that were based on different scale extents, like maybe some sort of cadastral map, like an assessor map, then annotation makes sense. But 99.9999% of your maps labels should suffice. We as a city have shied away from wanting to use annotation. Now you could create, if you wanted to doctor up a map for a project, for a submittal, for a staff report, you can convert your labels to annotation so that you can move the annotation around. Labels you can't really move around, right? They pretty much, it's the program does it for you. You can kind of give it some advanced capabilities using something like Maplex that would give you more advanced capability, but you still can't move the labels. You'd have to convert it to a map annotation or like a graphic.
I would, if I were doing that, and I have done it before for a specific project, for an exhibit or a report or a presentation, I would just use graphics in Pro.
Yeah, and that works. And that's
Yeah,
just,
that sounds good. Actually, Pro has better options for you, so we don't need to worry about annotations. I just wanted to.
there was no annotation in the source SDE world. I mean, in the old covers world anyway. The only thing that I mean, that was like, that's why it was like right off the bat, it was, oh, all of planning can move right to Pro. There's no utility network, there's no geometric network, there's no parcel fabric, there's no annotation, there's no COGO.
Correct.
They
Yeah.
can move straight to Pro without having a big problem.
Yep. Okay. Moving forward from that, we were looking at different kinds of feature classes. Most of yours are polygon, right? In digitizing polygons, I mean, you're probably familiar, but ArcGIS automatically takes care of a lot of things itself, like to make sure that the polygons are closed and those kind of things. If you have been working in ArcGIS Pro or ArcGIS Desktop, you already know it's not like how people used to draw lines separately and then build polygons. It's just automatically a polygon is a polygon, no matter what. I mean, ArcGIS will not allow you to construct an incomplete polygon. So in that aspect, we're okay. And then over and above that, you have the topology rules and so on. So this is also nice information that you have here. I just wanted to point out on the scale range, you have, zoomed in maximum is 5,000 and maximum zoomed out 50,000 could be used in like your web maps and those kind of things. But on your map, what we have here is, so we looked at the data sets and now we're looking at the MXD itself and your environment for editing. So I'll just quickly go back to this and take a look. So geometry by type, we looked at those. And then the next one is the feature classes. You have fields, data type, numeric versus text domain. So let's take a look at some of your data fields, and then I think we'll be ready to jump into editing. Okay, so what kind of data do you have on this? So I'll actually show it to you from the other catalog side, right? So all of your fields, if you go to the preview here, and it shows you the geometry, but you can look at the table, and then you can see that there is all of the fields that are present over here. I will show it to you in another view. Go to the properties of that layer, and if you look at the properties and you go into the fields, then you will find that it tells you what kind of a field. Is it a text field? Is it id double? Double is numeric number field. Or then some are date fields, and then you have the global id field. It's a special kind of field. And then you have some geometry fields. Geometry field stores the geometry information. And then these fields are special: created date, created by, last updated, last editor. These are the fields that keep track of who edited that specific feature, or who created it, and at what time. So that way you know that when edits are made, and you see, if you find something in a polygon and you have a question and it doesn't seem like quite right, like you know that maybe you and Lisa are editing, or you had a question on, why is the geometry going around, a certain um, creek or something. Just those kind of questions, you can see who edited it last, and then you can go and ask them. So that's nice to keep track of. Okay. um, and you also have a hyperlink field over here. Okay. uh, which you can use to link to other things like documents and all. So that in in a nutshell are all of these things here. Now there's something called subtypes, which is a special field. I don't find them here, so let me show you something which has a subtype. Maybe this one. Nope. Mm, none of them do actually, I think.
What would that be used for?
A subtype is like categorizing things by type, but if it is not there, then that's fine. I think you're using domains instead. Let me show you, for example, if you were to look for, it's like categorizing it by a type. So if you look at the special max du acre, it's got a domain. And so that means that when you're in that field and you drop down, it will allow you to pick from a list of valid values. So those are the domains. Okay. In your data right now, I didn't find subtypes, but if you had, then they would be probably listed over here. But it's okay, you don't have to use subtypes, and it's okay not to use them. Okay. um, so uh, you see, sometimes you will find that so the length here, for example, on the text field says this is the maximum number of characters you can fit inside that field, and then this is the domain or the pickup list. So if you look at pp underscore lu special max, then if you go to the here subtypes and then click on domains, you can find those values. There's a lot of domains because all of them but these are all your planning domains, right? So the ones with pp, you have the one for school neighborhoods, school type, right? um,
Yeah,
lu
Ted and I spent a good deal of time working on these. Ted mostly did, but I helped.
right. So here's the code. Here's the funny thing is that you have the code and your description is exactly the same, but technically you could have the code and you can give the whole thing as description. Like for example, this is agricultural slash residential rural, right? You could have spelled it out over here just to say that that's something that can be done. and because the code is always like the shorter part, sometimes it could be numeric, and here's a full detailed explanation of what it is. Okay.
I see.
Rita,
That's not the.
oh, sorry. If you just switch to the next description,
This one.
yeah, that one has the description.
Yeah, this one does have it, like Lata is saying, the LU description. So you do have the abbreviation still intact, but just the same. But I think this is kind of what most times they have for code and description. You do have ROWA for agricultural. Yeah, this is exactly what people would kind of like implement.
Yeah, Ted, I think there was a reason why we included both of those.
Yeah, yeah.
We
And
decided to.
it's okay to have both. Maybe you do have a purpose for both of them, you know.
Yeah. So we had a description. We have the value. So when we're displaying domains, we can either show the underlying code or the description. So if we have if we were to have one single field that was the code, and then the description of the code was the description, you guys would only see the code and never be able to populate the description like in a map or whatever it may be. And so we went with, here's the
That's
code,
right.
and then here's the description, and then in the description one, the code is the description. And then we did a third one that had the code and the description put together because that's the way Lisa was showing up on her symbology in the map. It would show the code and the description. At some point, we will build, this should all be able to be populated based on attribute rules. We should be able to automate that process. When we calculate this other stuff gets calculated.
That's right.
I know we should be able to do that with attribute rules as well. And we just did that for maximum flexibility. Now, in a year, maybe like, you know what? We never used the description field. Let's kill it. And then we'll go and we'll kill it. You know, it's the data is going to be, this is going to be like a living piece of city history. And we're going to have lots of changes to it over the next, 10 years. And it's going to get changes all the time. And every time you guys do a project with an outside consultant, they're going to want new stuff to it. So it's going to something that's going to ebb and flow on changes. So like in the old world, hey, once you defined it, it was too problematic to make changes because you had to make changes on every single one of the tiles. There's 400 tiles. So you had to make a field change on every one. Otherwise it would blow up. In the new world, it's not going to be that hard to make any changes that we might have to do. But that's long-winded response. Sorry about that.
No problem. So these are the domains, and we'll see them in action when we start editing, right? Been saying start editing, but I haven't really gotten there. So we'll get there right as soon. Okay, we'll take a look at the MXD and all of these functionalities in the MXD. I'm going to try to see if I can put this, and all of this information is again also available in the document. We have explained in the document what each one of these are. I'm going to try to move these. Oh, if I move there, it's maximizing, but go back here. Okay, let's see if we can show you side by side. Okay, so this is MXD, and this one is called your data frame. We called it the planning layers. And then there's groups in here. Almost everything's in a group except for the circulation current. It's just one layer, so we put it out there. Then you have the group that you're editing. We gave it an underscore edit so that you know this is your editing. Remaining ones are all references. And if you want to see them, you can always like turn them on. But then the symbology may interfere. You might want to turn off and then see, and you want to see what layers they are. You can see the legend over here. Okay, so that's the grouping of the layers. The grouping is just for putting together all of the layers that you need to like either reference by category. This is cadastral. You have easements and so on, right? So all of those layers. So that's the grouping. And then symbology. Mhm.
I'm looking at version 0, and you guys it looks like you guys are running version 1. Does that matter in terms of what MXD I have open? Because I was
No,
like,
no.
wait a minute, your layers are the same as mine. But then I looked at the name of the actual file, and I have V0, and you guys have got V1 up.
I think there was minor difference, and we'll send this to you again. And it's always there, it's up there, but we'll send it to you. Okay. Maybe a minor difference, because I think in our last meeting we discussed, and there was some minor changes on the symbols or something that came about. I'm not exactly sure what happened specifically in planning, but I can always send this to you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so grouping wise, we saw symbology. If you press this button, you will see the symbols. This is for the planning projects, the special projects, and then you have the GPLU proposed current changes. Zoning, these are all of your zoning description based on the zoning description. I think we got this from Lisa to begin with, and then there were other layers that changed. We didn't change this one, I think, but we have all of these coming from you. And
I don't know, those don't, wait, do they look right to you, Matt?
In terms of what?
The colors.
They're like a little off.
The naming convention is, but I don't think those were the colors, but that's.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you what we did. We probably have transparency set on this layer.
The reason, yeah, transparency is fine. I think the main thing was some of the colors were chosen based on traditional, but also they were set up so that when they were next to each other, they weren't the same color shade. So there had been some planning about which ones were generally next to each other. But that's fine. I think the main thing is I don't think we have a really strict rule about that. The main thing is that some of the specific plants are hatched, right?
They are here too.
Yeah, that's the only thing. I think, Matt, isn't that kind of what you?
Yeah, it has to do with it's complicated, but
we kind of want to verify what the standard should be so that we are consistent.
Yeah, it should follow a standard all across, I would say, not only in this MXD, but whatever you're using on your browser. And I think we got the first one from you and we mapped to it. There are layers which we didn't get symbology for because they were probably not in your planning, the initial one that you gave us, Lisa. So we changed, or we added symbology there.
Yeah, the land use kind of changed a bit for various reasons, not because of planning, but just, I mean, that was by some data didn't get to the consultant, so that was the reason. But I can certainly send the one that Matt and I had sort of confirmed recently, which ones we thought were closest to. One of the issues we've had is that some of the old symbology from ArcMap were used based on CADME definitions, which are E00, coverage formats.
Right.
And so they don't convert to ArcMap, and thus don't convert to Pro very well. And so we were kind of I was trying to design a symbology set for these two layers specifically to ensure that they could be consistent across ArcMap and Pro, so that if we fixed it now, they would be working in both environments. And we're still kind of working on that a little bit.
Okay. Would you say that you would have an updated MXD soon?
Well, I certainly, what I would probably do is, I had actually just got an email back from ESRI because I was trying to find a programmatic method that might help convert the style sheet from ArcMap to an XML style sheet in Pro, so we wouldn't have to do the conversion manually for each layer. Because as Ted pointed out, when I imported the layer to the new databases, sometimes because the field names were slightly different, the symbology from an imported layer file did not go over well. So, and then because of the way that Pro doesn't manage style sheets the same way as ArcMap does, a style, I don't know if you've had any experience importing a style sheet from ArcMap into Pro. Have you tried that?
I'll have to check. I
Because I
did not
it
work
seems
with
like
it
there should,
specifically right now. Yeah,
yeah,
I
there it
haven't.
should be. Anyway, we can talk offline about that, because I think there should be a programmatic way to do that more efficiently. And that's kind of outside of this context. But anyway, I can send you the layer file once I confirm it with Matt
Yeah.
on zoning, on the land use, and then on the specific plan.
Okay. Lata is just opening up the original one that we received from you. Okay. That was called underscore package towards the end. So, the planning layers are here. Zoning official are these colors which we used.
Yeah.
So we didn't really change this. And we also at 40% transparency. I think you have set up the same over here. But if you made
Yeah,
changes after this, then let us know, and we
yeah,
can
not
always.
fine.
I don't know where those colors come from
I know
because
those colors don't look like anything that I created, so
I mean, this is a big reason that the whole description doesn't quite work, because we get multifamily residential zone 6 times, because normally it would be R3, R4,
right.
and we removed, because that was originally I had that all in there built into the domain, but we had to
That-
remove it. But it shows up like this, so, and we can't just do one symbol for multifamily because it's all itemized out. So
there's 6 different multifamily zones. They just all have the same description because they're all the multifamily zone, but each one of them is different. It
Yeah.
has a different
no,
density.
I understand that, but I mean, it's in the label you ultimately end up with 6 multifamily residential zones instead of here's one that references all 6.
So the label was only supposed to be used for labeling. It wasn't used to create a symbology expression. So, for example, my impression, Matt, is that all the multifamily residential would be one color.
No, they are all different colors. They're
But
supposed
they
to
are. Okay, they should be.
Yeah.
then-
No, they should all be different ones because they're all different.
Yeah, they should have.
R4 is totally different from R3 1500.
So this should be labeled by the zone value.
Default is always labeled by zone value. The label is equal to the zone value. Somebody's taken the effort in this MXD to make it all the same. So we thought, oh, they've taken the effort to make it all the same.
That was done by somebody else. I did not do that.
Okay.
So what I would say in some capacity, label is a field that might make sense to get rid of.
Okay, it's 4:30 and we're supposed to be training, so let's get
Yeah.
to
Yeah, right.
training.
Let us know when your MXD is ready. We can always change it. Right now, we're gonna go forward with what we have. I'm going to close this, go back to the MXD that we have here, right? Okay, so symbology, you have looked at that. Scale dependency, as you zoom in and out, you will find layers appear and disappear, and that's because something called scale dependency, which can be set over here. If you go to properties, and we had set scale dependencies on some layers but not on all layers. If it says show at all levels, it's going to show at all levels. Okay, but if not, it will tell you what layer at which level it appears or disappears. And also one more thing you'll notice is that if it's not visible at that, it's kind of grayed out over here. As you keep zooming in and in and in, it will show up but if it's not there, I mean, you'd have to really turn on that group there to see. Okay, so that's the scale dependency part. Labels, like we said, you don't have annotations, but you want to see if because of course you might, if your colors are standardized, as soon as you look at that, you probably will know, but you have a lot of things to remember. You almost need to this long dictionary of zoning codes and everything, right? You can always like label the features if you wanted to, and you can see immediately you know what zones they are.
You'd be
uh,
surprised about how much I remember.
yeah, I mean, I am not surprised actually. Let me put it that way. But for other people, for sake
Yeah.
of other people, right? Nobody kind of knows what this specifically, yellow would mean. There's three
Mhm.
different shades of yellow there. So um, the other thing is, because you probably know day in, day out, but if you had to make a quick map for somebody, share it
Mhm.
with somebody, then you'll be using this. Um,
Yeah.
the other thing is selectable versus non-selectable layers. If you look at this over here, we have made sure that you can only select some layers and not all of your layers. But even then, some of these, for example, FEMA flood zone, if you never need to select it, then you can just click on this and it will move to your non-selectable list. The kangaroo rat habitat zone, you don't feel like you
Mhm.
you only need to look at it but never select it, you can do that. But the moment you need to select it, you can just go and press that and it will pop up straight into that list again. Okay.
And
Mhm.
I think, Matt, I think I made a video about this in one of the planning videos. And
Yeah.
then also, Harita, you could also do a shift and pick one of those and it will turn them all off.
Yeah.
And then the user can actually just turn on one that they want to select only.
Right.
Maybe you can show the selection chip if you turn on general plan zoning in the same area. When you select the general plan of the zone, you get the little selection chip that pops up, and then that's another way to interactively define what your selection is.
Yeah, it's like you will have multiple given at any given point of time, you have more than one thing that may be over here.
Turn on
So
the general plan. Turn on GP Land Use Official.
uh yes, turn that on. And
Turn
then
off zoning and turn, because those are usually coincident. So you want to be sure you're not turning on the other ones, but
yeah, I think on this MXD, so I will show that to you when we are in the edit mode, but there's something that will come up and then you can switch your selection, toggle selection. We'll show that to you during the edit. Toolbars, your important toolbars, we have everything shown over here, but on yours, Matt, we only have the editor toolbar, and then you have the data reviewer, and then the attribute assistant. So there's just a few toolbars that you will be using on a regular basis for editing. You will not use like these guys here, parcel editor and so on. You can always turn off, anything else that you don't need in ArcMap by giving a right click and then unchecking that, button there. There are bookmarks. There's a City of Riverside bookmark. You can make your own bookmarks for a specific area and so on. But basically, that's your citywide bookmark. Okay. Any questions so far? We're ready to move.
No. I mean, yes, but not relevant to the training. So I'll see.
We're going to have another day at it.
Yeah.
I kind of think that this will overflow into the next training session, and that's okay. Yeah. Let's look at when we're ready to start editing. We have the basics of starting to edit, and one of the important basics here is versioning. How many people are going to be editing the planning data right now? It's Lisa and it's Matt, correct?
And I'll be doing some too.
Okay, so we have 3 editors, right? So each one, we assume, are going to be working on one project. Both, I mean, like not more than one person will work on the same project, we're assuming. So that's why if you look at this workflow together, and we'll send this to you, or probably Ted has this too. this picture in the sense when you're ready to start for editing, you have to identify the neighborhood and the project name. Or in case of planning, I mean, it's more like location specific, we're saying, because we want you to limit your edits to a certain specific area. Okay, in the beginning, we're not saying this is forever, but we're trying to avoid something called a conflict in the future. Especially, I know circulation current, for example, is going to be used by traffic and with planning, so I expect some kind of coincidences or conflicts there. Okay.
So when you say identify neighborhood or project name,
Mhm.
identify it where? In
You whatever source material you might have, that is the source of your edits. What would you get, for example, for zone change, right?
Oh, well, what would you guys say about a case number? Because
Yeah.
each zone change, a general plan amendment or whatever, will have a unique case number.
Yes, you can go by
That
the
would be
case
really
number.
good. That would be really great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually perfect.
Yeah. So instead of giving neighborhood and project name, you give your case number and then you give initials, but you do say case number and then give it so that people know when they look at it, if they see your initials, they know it's planning data being edited. And so based on that itself, people know the who created that version and why they created. Because if your version is something needs to be done regarding your version, then Ted will need to contact you, so he needs to know who created that version. So having your initials there with the case number would be important. Then you open your editing mxd, you make sure you have your toolbars, and then you navigate to your case number location, and you switch to the version that you just created, right?
So one question I have, Matt, is I know that oftentimes there are many case numbers that associate with that particular change.
Well, yeah, there'll be many case numbers that associate with the overall project, but so let's say, for instance, it's a large development that involves a general plan amendment, a zone change, a conditional use permit, design review approval, and a couple of variances. So you'll have like 6 or 7 case numbers, but one of those case numbers will be only for the general plan amendment, and one of those case numbers will only be for the zoning change.
Oh, perfect. Okay. That's good to know. I thought sometimes I saw them in one document, so
Yeah, we usually list them all, but in terms of editing for
Okay.
in terms of editing for like a general plan amendment, the general plan amendment doesn't care about the conditional use permit case number. It has no relevance. So
Perfect.
we
All
don't
right.
need it.
Cool.
Okay, so then you start editing, and once you finish your edits, you save your edits, you reconcile, and you refresh your version. You stop editing when you're done. And I said open the QCMXD, or this is basically just to conduct your quality control. You'll probably be running your quality control in the same MXD. But if you found any errors, you fix them, save, and reconcile again. But once you're done with all of your edits, when you're ready to say, okay, this version can be going up into the default version of your database, let ITGIS know. Now, this is the part where some automation may come up soon, but at this point of time, it's just an email letting Ted know that this project name, project status, and the case name and the status, and then you can say if you know any issues, like for example, there are any exceptions, some important attribute that ID that needs to be filled isn't filled in or something like that. If you want to relay, you can relay that.
What
And
does reconcile mean?
I'm sorry.
What does reconcile mean?
Yeah, great question.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just was about to show the workflows, but um, you have your versions, right? You are going to be editing your version, right? And as you keep on editing, there may be some changes that happen on the other version also. So you have to go through these processes of reconciling and refreshing your version. And
Okay.
then so we'll walk through this process. That's what we will do. When you do that, it's going to until they post it, though it will not go. So that's why I left out the posting part uh, to the ITGIS. You're not going to post it, at least in the beginning. So the post will be done. That means like sending your changes over to the default version will be done by Ted or Ken. Okay.
Okay.
So
Real quick before you go further, this flowchart, it's not in the training document, but will you make this presentation available to us?
yes, we will be.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this flowchart, I mean, we may have to tweak it a little bit for you, but overall, it's kind of the same workflow. Here, it will be case number instead of that, and so on. And maybe we don't have another MXD, but we just conduct QC straight in that same MXD. So if ITGIS does find any errors, once you notify them, then they will let you know, and then it's kind of a circle. But it doesn't usually happen in your case because your data is like fairly straightforward, and you have topology also that will help with a lot of finding any errors ahead of time. So we don't really expect a whole lot of like loops going around here in this QC. There's other kind of data, but certainly yours shouldn't be that. That will run into like loops of QC. So once that is done, ITGIS will also delete the version in the end. In the meanwhile, you have to go back to your MXD and switch. But if you don't switch, no worries. The next time you open your MXD, it will only take a very long time to open it, and your links will be broken, and then you'll switch automatically. You're forced to switch to a different version, the parent version. Okay, so that's basically the whole versioning workflow over here. And then avoiding conflicts, this is where we thought that you should have a specific case name so that you and Lisa will not be working on the same case, and your edits will not be at the same location, but like separated out geographically, location wise, so that they're not um, going to have any conflicts in the beginning. Later on, it's okay. And again, at this point of time, I think you're okay in having conflicts also, because when ITGIS is actually posting the date, and they run into some things over there that they can resolve and take care of the conflict. So we'll be doing that, but with the ITGIS, the conflict resolution training later on. So just let you know that try to avoid conflicts in the beginning of the editing, but later on you will be fine. If you and Lisa edited the same polygon at the same time, it's still okay if you happen to do that. But if you both edit the geometry, then you'll have to figure out whose is correct and so on. Those are the things that you need to be worried about. So before you start editing, you identify, in your case, not the neighborhood but the case number, and then where it is. You go to that location in the MXD, and you make sure that you switch to your new version and you start editing. That's your workflow. I think at this point, like, we're a few minutes away, like we only have like about 15 minutes, and I think Matt, do you have a case number that we can look at and walk through this process a little bit?
Yes.
Can we make you the presenter?
Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to add a day next week for planning and traffic. And we should be open all week.
We could always do a recording for traffic and give it to them, a separate video sort of, if that's okay.
Yeah, to my big thing on traffic is just make sure the topology is right. We also got to make sure that the topology is right for transportation planning.
Do you mean the topology rules or the topology as far as editing is concerned?
Topology rules.
Okay.
But I do think that we start going to need another meeting for planning anyway.
Yeah, I agree. We can do that. So this is a case. What's the case number and what's the location?
The case number is P19-0553.
Okay, and where is it located?
And the location is 11253 Pierce Street.
Okay.
PIERSE.
Okay. First thing we try to do is go to that location in your ArcMap.
So that's how you would do it. You go and you'd look up by address. You wouldn't go to APN.
Sometimes there's like a bunch of APNs. Sometimes there's multiple addresses, but we usually try to pick one and use that.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, here we are.
How did you do that?
How did I do what?
How'd you find the address?
I panned with the hand.
Click the binocular tools.
In the document, we do describe how the different ways of finding your locations.
Click on locations and type in the address. And you could try that. You could try that too. If, yep. Say find. Say right click. And yep, see how it flashed? You flash it. You flash it.
Yep.
Right there. Another thing you can do for a single line input, you could also do Pierce ampersand golden. Yeah, try that. Enter. And there you go. Right click, flash. Yep. See, ampersand works. The @ sign should work, and the pipe symbol should work. And these I only know these because I do that in Pro. So they work in Pro. They should work here as well.
So
Okay.
pages 13 through 18 on in the manual, they give you this look. They give you all of the methods for finding, either by address, APN, navigation kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Fortunately for me, I just know where stuff is.
that's really good. Like the back of your hand, you can just pan there and you're good, right? So that's good. So okay, what's the next step? Our next step is to create a version, right, for this. So make sure that
Okay.
you're in the right version, first of all, in the parent version. So if you go to the table of contents, the second button there, it shows what version you're on. You're on SDE default, but you want to use the training default for this. So switch to that first and then create a child version. So give a right click, change version, and you can see in the tree view is kind of easier. Go down and you'll find SDE.training default. So select that, just that.
What I like to do is I just expand the change version thing, because then I can see it all. Like instead of it's a small window, you can always expand it, make it really big, select it, say okay, close out of it. Yeah, that can work too.
Okay, so I've got training default. That's it.
What
do I need to do next?
Already?
There's this.
You should be on the training default, because what you're going to do is create a child of that. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now, if
So
you were in production, you would do it in the default, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So now you need to have your versioning toolbar. Is that up there already? There is a versioning toolbar all the way, yeah, there. And you can create a new version, right? It's going to be created under the parent. So the parent version is the training default, and under that you'll give the case name and your initials at the end.
So the convention we agreed on is case name, location, initials, or just case name, initials?
Case name and initials are okay. If Lisa would kind of like, if no two people are going to be working on the same case, and if it may be a good idea to actually include the location, but we don't want the version name to be too long either. So
Right.
it's really up to you.
No, I think that most of the time it's either going to be him and then maybe in some cases if we get really busy, we can split it up or somebody does zoning and somebody does planning, or land use, general plan, land use. But we could decide, Matt, however is easiest for you.
I mean, this is enough for me, at least. This is enough information because with that case number, I can very easily figure out what the location is because every case number is associated with a location in our permit tracking system.
Right.
I don't know if that's helpful for IT staff though.
Well, it will be because that was one of the things I always wished we could have had a better link to the permits because that's why we've always had such trouble tracking, permit relationships to things. And I think it would be better if we could get there. So this would be a good way.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with this for now. Is that all right?
That's good because you especially put the description and you put in the address there, right? So that's good. And you make it protected, very good. And also switch to the new version and say okay. So now what does the specific case number ask you to do? What changes are you supposed to make here?
Okay, so I'm gonna show you this PDF. I'm gonna rotate it. So, so we have two parcels that, this might actually be tricky because I don't think the cadastral has been updated to reflect those parcels.
Yeah, it might not be actually.
Yeah, it's not. Interesting. Okay, I thought this might be a good idea because, okay, basically what happens is this whole piece plus a couple of these other parcels are the project site. And this purple, the office designation, gets moved to like this corner and the entire remainder of it changes from the yellow R1 or a medium density residential, I'm sorry, to high density residential. So I kind of had this one in mind because I thought that might be, but now that I'm looking at this and I'm looking at how, because, okay, so here's what happens. Parcel A becomes office, and then parcel B, which is the big one, and then these guys, these little guys around the edges, they go from a combination of office and medium density residential to this whole piece becomes high density residential. That's probably a more complex edit than you had in mind for today.
At the moment, yeah, but we can always like simulate a small edit and then come back and show you the big one, right? Quick question. Does
the other part I have a question, Matt, is it possible that even if the parcels aren't updated, that some of the other variables are reflected? Because sometimes what I'll do, and Haritha, sorry to interrupt, but what I often would do to be sure is I would georeference this image and push it into the map so I'm sure that I'm associating with the accuracy of the plan.
So you mean like you almost are like tracing?
Well, not tracing, but I'm georeferencing this image in my map, especially for this kind of complicated one, to make sure the measurements that are reflected are somewhat consistent with our data. And then, and I make it transparent so I can see our layers underneath. That's a workflow that you guys might not have been aware of, but that's what I've been doing for a long time, because it doesn't take me very long to georeference anything. I just put it in really quickly. In your case, there may not be a need to do that, but it is something that gives people a reference to also verifying that the data that's being snapped to is consistent with what should be reflected.
Right.
But in this case, well, it doesn't even matter.
I agree, Lisa. That's exactly the question that I had too. Was should you really need cadastral to be updated before you made that change? And if not, then we can always georeference it. And in the document, we have given the process to georeference, and that's on towards the end of the document. We gave like two. One is for CAD drawings, the other one is for like the plans that you're showing there. So the scanned images.
Another thing you can do is you can Kogo a polygon without actually having Kogo attributes. You get the geometry in there.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Kogo is where you put in the distances, the directions and the distances. I only had to do it one time, maybe twice in 3 years when I was doing planning edits.
But that's only something that's kind of a more advanced scenario.
It is, but it is a possibility. So if you get to the point, Matt, where the parcel hasn't been submitted and you need it, you could go in there. We could Kogo the line work.
Okay.
Probably what we probably want to do is just creating a sample geometry on the side, Kogo that, and then use that as a buffer to kind of clip out the data that we're trying to look at, or just to snap to it to align stuff. There's other toolbars that you're going to want to have access to that you're going to want to add to your gray area. One's the advanced toolbar and one's the topology tool. Because you have shared geometries between the two zones that we have in front of us, that there's a boundary there. If you use the feature editing tool, you're going to move one of the line work. You need to move both lines together. Where the one, the residential, I don't know what color that is, that the blue or gray, and then yellow.
It's office.
It's office. So if you needed to move the line between residential and office towards Pierce Street, you'd really want to grab the edge, and you grab the edge would pull both lines towards Pierce. If you just use the feature editing tool, then ultimately you would just grab one line, and you might introduce a gap in the data. That's where the topology steps in. When you run the topology, come back and say, oh, there's a gap in your data, because you use feature editing. You can use feature editing along the right-of-way if there's no geometry in there. But if there is an edge where there is shared geometry, you have to use the topology edge tools. Now, fortunately, there's these really cool tools that you'll be able to use called Reshape Edge. And we'll do Reshape align to center line, or line to edge, or line to feature, where we can draw the center line in some of the zones that have to come out into the right-of-way. We can align to the center line where we snap. It creates a feedback little buffer around where you're going to go, and anything that fits within that buffer will snap to it. So you draw essentially a buffer around the center line, and the lines will snap into the center line. So there's some really cool topology, polygon-based editing for planning. Planning editing is going to be fun. Trust me.
Okay, so I think
it's going to be fun.
No, I'm sure it is. For the purposes of this exercise, then, because I unfortunately picked a really complicated kind of procedure, do you want to just do just make something up as an example?
Yeah. I just want to say one thing here I noticed is that, well, all of the things that Lisa has mentioned and Ted has mentioned are correct and great. We plan to show them all to you. It's just that today's session, we are kind of running out of time. We'll have to plan one more session, or the next session that we have, we'll probably, I think that we should probably have a session for your editing to continue. Because the next session that we had planned with you was actually on Thursday with the traffic, transport, and everybody, right? So could we do a training in the meantime, or did you want us to then you're comfortable with doing the data reviewer training and then coming back to the editing?
I think that we will need to come back to the editing, just because I have lots going on right now, so I don't have a lot of extra time this week.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree, because I want to be in there, and I won't be available until I'm in electric and transport tomorrow, and then I'm in cadastral and data reviewer on Thursday.
Yeah, but then it will be next week then.
Yeah. It has to be next
I have
week.
time Monday. We can think about, Matt, if you're available Monday, we can schedule a session.
I'm out on Monday. I'm sorry, guys.
No problem. How about Wednesday?
Thursday.
Next Wednesday, Thursday.
Next Wednesday is, okay, come on. Can't see.
And I have a suggestion, Matt. I could actually georeference the document into the map, and then at least we would have a reference for this example.
Well,
Is
if we have time to come back to it next week, which I know that my calendar looks crazy next Wednesday, but I don't actually have to be at any of this, so I'm
That's
totally
cool.
free.
Cool.
I would like to learn how to do that, Lisa.
Yes, I would love to have that be part of it, if that's okay. for you
Right,
guys.
and also just remember that if you go back to your PDF file there, open it up, um,
Mhm.
and maximize it. Go towards the last. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, that's the page where we are talking about how to georeference a plan in the back. Now, the example there is because we didn't have any planning related document there, but it's the same thing. You find
Same idea.
discrete intersections and then you match them up and then you follow through. So everything that you need for your editing is in this document already. So just take a look at it and let me know if you have any questions whenever you get a chance to be able to, if you can just take a look at this document. Then the other thing is we have to go back to your MXT. Your MXT is pointing to my login there, I think. So we'll have to change that. So we'll probably send you, or Ted would be able to send you an MXT with a broken link, and then you can repair it. I wonder if you have one already, but I'm not sure.
Well, I also have, so notice I opened V1 because I originally had V0 open, which was
Okay.
slightly
So V0,
different.
right.
Yeah, V0 is the broken link. Yeah,
Yeah.
V1.
So you should probably use V0 when you're editing in the interim. We'll let you know. I don't think we made that many changes. So every time we send you, we have to break the link and send you. Or it's easy enough to go and change things on the what do you call the ARC catalog and repoint this. But let's close this right now. You don't need to edit in this, but you can edit in the V0 one. Yeah. And all that was done was we just added _ref_edit like that
I see.
in the groups. Mainly that's the thing. Here you can go to the top level and then change the version there, all the way in the table of contents. Yeah, but again, you may have to recreate the version because the version kind of got created with my login there. So that's what happens. Yeah, see, this is what would happen. Go and try to connect though. This is something that you can see. If you looked at that, not that one, the one that we just created was with the case number. What's the case number? Yeah,
This one.
yeah, that's the one. If you try to connect it, it's a protected version. It will allow you to look at it, but it will not allow you to edit it. Okay. So it says, yeah, you can connect to it, no problem, but it will not allow you to edit it.
Okay.
So you can create a new version and then switch to that instead, and that should be fine. Okay. So don't save this MXT at the end, and you'll be fine that way, right? Okay. So we should plan on continuing with the editing session later on. Whenever you're available, I think we should coordinate with CJ and give us some dates and times, and we can continue. You have the documentation right now, which includes georeferencing and all. And then next, I mean, on Thursday, we do have the data reviewer training for all the teams together. Okay, which is traffic, transport, and planning together.
And that's which day?
That's Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
Yeah, but we do have some time in the morning, like between 11 to 1, if you wanted to have an editing session. But I guess you're busy, so
You said Wednesday was better, right, Matt?
Yeah, this week is really difficult for me, but next Wednesday I'm pretty available.
okay. So we'll do
Next
the
Wednesday.
data reviewer training, and if time permits, and we can look into the editing also if time permits. But I'm not really sure between, like, there is the planning,
I think
traffic, and transport together.
I think you'll need time next week for transport too.
Okay.
I
Okay.
would bet. Just saying. I'm pretty open on Wednesday. I'm pretty much full on Wednesday, but I just put in blocks of time just so CJ would see I have blocks of time taken up.
Okay. Okay, well, I think that's it for now, right? We'll send you the recording of this meeting, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you very much,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Harita,
Uh-huh.
when's the cadastral meeting next week?
So here's the thing. Tomorrow we have a training for I'm sorry, on Thursday we have a training for cadastral.
Yeah.
After that, I don't see a training.
I was pretty sure we were gonna do an extra cadastral class.
Correct. But I'm trying to see. I think I have asked CJ on that. Let me check. Yeah, I'll try to set this up. But we do
But I
need.
have a feeling we're probably gonna have to add a couple hours at least for transport because there's 5 of them in the class. So
Yeah, there are. But if we don't discuss anything else and we just discuss, we'll try to stay, I guess, with the data, right?
yeah. Because you still, because Lana's still got to go over what's going to happen in the attribute assistant.
The thing is that I kind of feel, I mean, not to rush on this. It is important for everybody to, like, discuss on the data, what you're editing, what Lisa's editing, and that is important. But it kind of takes up training, but also it's an important discussion to be had, right? So
Yeah, well, I think we also I would say maybe less on the PowerPoints and more in the actual getting our hands in is probably more, that is better for most of the staff, I would say.
okay,
But
we'll try to do that next time.
I mean, I don't know what you think, Matt, but some of the terms, until you actually see them in play, they don't really compute until you actually see what that means.
Yeah, well, no, I mean the sort of theoretical framework that the PowerPoint goes through is helpful to frame it out, but it's not something that I don't think you need to spend a lot of time on it, and I think you guys are going at a pretty good clip. We just, none of us can help ourselves with getting off on a bit of a side conversation about stuff that's relevant, but is not necessarily planned.
Yeah, I mean,
for like the best way to do things.
Right. For us, it is almost like the second or third time. We're looking at this data with you, trying to even like come up with examples of editing. Is like we really need to know what kind of edits you do, right? So we need to know you go by case number, yes, and then is cadastral first, or you edit first, or what if cadastral data isn't there? These are all the questions that need to be sort of addressed in your editing framework. So
they would be they would use a layer called tentative tracks. There's a tentative tracks layer that I think Cadastral maintains, but it's probably a layer you want to put in their template.
Mm-hmm.
Tentative tracks or tentative maps in the Cadastral data.
I mean, that would capture some of it, but not all of it, because It's sometimes parcel lines move and they're not maps. It's just a lot line adjustment. Let me put it this way. The thing that I showed you today that involved, that was a large project with a bunch of moving parts, including a lot line adjustment that happened basically concurrently with the zoning changes. So
Right.
that was probably a bad example. I can pick one that's really easy. It's like a single parcel that goes from one thing to another thing.
Yeah, those kind of changes are pretty simple and straightforward, but it's also good to see what I would do is I would just try to do the steps A through Z with the difficult one.
Mhm.
Maybe not necessarily during the training, but whenever you get a chance, you do it based on what we have given you. And if you have questions, email us at any time. If you can get to it before the next training. Now, if not, send us that plan anyway, and so that we walk through, we'll show you. We
Okay,
can make a video and send it to you. And if
that
we
would be
cannot
cool.
schedule a training, that video will be your training, if that's okay with Ted and
Yeah, I
Lisa
can
and Ken.
send you like, because we have you can see the exhibits that we prepared for the project when it was being put forward for approval.
Mhm.
That ultimately did get approved, and those exhibits aren't actually changes to any data. They're just graphical representations basically of what the changes are supposed to be,
Right.
and then when it gets approved, then the data actually gets edited. That's
Right.
that's how the sausage gets made here,
Okay.
at least
So
currently.
are exhibits CAD format, or are exhibits in PDF? Or what are they?
I could probably dig. Well, they're not in CAD format. No, they're in GIS, but they're not. They're
graphics.
made. Yeah, pretty much. They're graphics. So I can get you a PDF. I could probably dig up maybe if it got saved, where the exhibits were actually created, but they don't usually get saved.
So conceptually, they could be versions where you could
They
go
could
in
be.
there and really edit a version based on your area, get it done, use it as a graphical representation, even though it's pointing to regular geometry. And then when you come in and create the official one, and this is where you almost open it up to where everyone can create their own little graphics. And they all open up their own little version to create whatever it may be. And then that becomes the source to the project or whatever it may be.
When you say graphics, are they just is it in a feature class, or is it like MXD
Like a graphic.
graphics?
Like I'm going to go over and I'm going to put a graphic over that polygon, and I'm going to change it from residential R165 to just office.
Right. Let me show you, for example, graphic means like the drawing tools.
Yeah, right.
Okay. I wonder if you wanted like a sketch temporary kind of layer here to help that, Ted.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if we could, you could all, but see, then Matt has to do all that sketch work
Mm-hmm.
for everybody. Right. I mean, I would say that you almost spread the chair.
the
Where
wealth.
all the other planners, if you're going to go out and create a staff report and you need this, then I think a sketch layer would be sensible. It doesn't have to have any fields on it. I just want an ability to generate a polygon. They create a version, temporary polygon, and then when it gets adopted, then you come in and you put the official one in the zone code.
Matt, if you expand that node that says planning up there in your layers, do you see any layer that can already be used for that, or should we have to create a new layer for that? Planning projects, does it make?
So
I would think that
I think we could almost go ahead.
I would think that it would make sense to create a dedicated layer for that.
Planning sketch.
Just for that.
Okay. Well, planning sketch, we will say that it's like a replica of zoning. Does that make sense, or did you want to like?
Well, there should be one for zoning, there should be one for general plan, and there should be one for specific plans, because those are all the things that we would be changing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think kind of like, I mean, in a way, what GP proposed changes current is
that
almost
layer?
keep
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
for that purpose, and then you build another one for zoning, and you build another one for specific plan.
Right.
And you don't worry about the data that goes in proposed changes doesn't. I think it's full of data right now, but we don't need it to have anything in it.
Okay.
We make it blank, and then when somebody goes in and needs to add a little polygon, we'll just have to show everybody how to build the little sketch.
So we create equivalent layers, but call them sketch in the front. We create a copy of those layers, but we call them sketch in the front. And it will
Yeah.
only contain temporary line work that once you finished and you approve, then you can move it to the original layers.
Or
But
start over and just build it from scratch based on the parcel.
yeah, Ted, can we speak offline on this? And you know what I'm trying to say is we are going to create like 3 more layers. I don't know if that's acceptable at this point of time for you, because
No,
you
it's totally fine for me.
okay. Let me take a look, and then so I'll say that everything in planning becomes like a sketch layer, right? But your actual data and the topology will be built on the original layers, not on the sketch layers. The sketch layers are tentative drafting lines.
Yeah,
That's
we
something-
just use map topology.
Oh, okay.
Are you saying we use topology? We can use. So we're going to use regular Snappy to parcels for the official layers anyway. But I would say that in the sketch layers, they're empty geometries, and the people would just go in there and sketch out a zone change or a specific plan, or it's just temporary data set.
Right. Okay. Should it be in another feature data set, or should it be within like planning? Should we call it planning sketch data set and create it, and then
I mean, we could do it as a separate feature data set.
I wouldn't recommend that. I would say that the easiest thing would be that it'd be easier to have it as we already have the not primary layers. Those existing layers could be used as a change or temporary change layer. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, I actually like taking the idea that we have for GPLU proposed changes.
And using those.
I almost think, not to go too complicated here, but we have our GP land use official. We have our GP land use proposed changes current, and then we have GPLU sketch.
Oh, why does there need to be a third though? Even why can't it just?
You don't need a third one.
And then I would say, so we would do a GPLU sketch, and then what I would say is we would do a GPLU sketch 2.0, second attempt, and a third attempt. I think we should do 16 layers. No, I'm just kidding.
okay, let's tell me the final verdict so I can.
So the reality is the proposed change current concept could be applied here, and that becomes the sketch data set.
I agree with that. I think, because here's what I'm thinking, and I'm going to put this in like kind of layman terms, but there should be a version that, and this is why I recommended the using the term official in the name of that layer, is that's what's blessed, and the only things that are in that layer are things that have been officially been adopted, implemented, and that is real, for better, for lack of a better term. Then there's a version of that, another version of that same data for general plan, for zoning, and for specific plans, that based on your project, you can go in and make whatever changes you need to show what is proposed to be changed on the official version. And then, so you could use that whatever you want to call it, proposed changes or sketch, layer, whatever, edit in that layer to create all of your exhibits and documentation for your presentations and your staff reports and all of that. And then, but it doesn't actually change anything. And anybody who accesses that data knows that none of this is formalized. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think, and we can. Do we want it blank from the get-go, or do you want it full of geometry?
Well, I think I don't think we want to have planners going in there and trying to like draw something from scratch, if that's the right.
No, you wouldn't want to do
understand.
that.
No, they should be able to.
They're still, if they're going to sketch data out, they're still going to have to go in the middle of an R165 and turn one single area into a polygon for an office park. But they're going to still have to be able to know how to cut the R165 into a little polygon for office.
Right.
And then,
so
so
why would you want it to be blank?
So if there's no geometry in there, then they just have to go in there and create a single polygon that would snap to the R165. Versus, here's the geometry. Now go in and edit its existing geometry and cut it up into 4 polygons.
I see.
And so if it's blank, it's just okay. Ryan has a couple over here. I mean, because this is good for current planning. I'm going to go in and I'm going to put a little fence in here, and then I got to do a 300-foot buffer for notification purposes, and they can kind of doctor up the kind of geometries that are in there. I mean, I guess they can't put lines in there, but that's something that, I mean, this is, what's that concept that Esri calls it? Design, city, Lisa? What does Esri call it? The whole concept of the way we edit now is based on this concept that Esri has.
Urban design.
Urban design.
No, not urban design. It's called something else. City. Do they have the summit every year?
Oh, geodesign.
Geodesign. So geodesign is this idea that you can go in there and design your work. And it may get to the point where we have 3 polygons now, but it might get to the point where
a lot of what you're talking about is going to be what the planners that are supporting the housing element are going to be bringing to the table. So it may also be worthwhile to, depending on when they come on board, to see how they might like to see the data reflected, possibly.
To me, I would almost say that you keep planning by itself as a feature data set, and you come out and you create a whole nother feature data set. And in that feature data set, you have all this design data. It's separate, completely separate.
Yeah, we're in the weeds.
Can I say one thing here? My basic goal is to make sure that planning is able to edit. At this point, I only thought that Matt and Lisa were the editors for planning. Now you have the other people coming in and they may give you sketches. So send us what the sketches look like, either like maps or however it might be. If you have PDF, we'll show you how to georeference and have it in the background and do your editing. The plan that you send, the case that you showed us just now, send that to us. We'll make videos on how you can edit. As far as the versioning structure and everything is concerned, I think Ted tried to stay away from having deeper levels of version, but maybe planning is an exception. But that's something that can be discussed, a little bit later, especially after you have your urban, the module that you were saying, Ted, the urban planning.
Well, no. There's this idea of geodesign.
Yeah.
Geodesign is essentially it's planning. It's just geodesign is probably the forefront of what we see with City Engine and ArcGIS Urban. It was a way for people to come in and help. There are all these landscape architects that come in to design everything.
Yeah.
I think you have your official data though in one feature data set, and then you have your design data set. So probably what would be worthwhile to look at is if there's some sort of recommend from a geodesign standpoint, do they have certain layers? Because I would go so further as, okay, we have polygons in here to represent your zone codes and your general plan and your specific plan, but I almost want to say, I would want my own line data sets to look at brick walls or different types of, as you're designing a proposal that's going to go in to planning commission, you almost have all these representative geometries that you could go in there and tweak.
Okay.
That sounds very cool,
here's
but
my,
it also
here's my design of the types of trees I'm going to have. This is the type of right of way I'm proposing. Maybe I'm going with a sense of place, and I'm going with this neat little sense of place community, neo-traditional design, and I have all these different little elements that I want to be able to edit. And that all to me goes in a design feature data set outside of here's me planning official data.
you're like years down the road here, dude. Right?
So for now, please send us those examples, and we will go ahead and tell you how exactly. Sorry, Ted. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to go offline and I'm going to look into this. I'm going to see if they have. I still think you want to keep like the domains associated. If we go with no geometry, you still want to have the domains for general plan and all that. Essentially, I would take the whole structure of zoning official and recreate it as a blank data set called sketch. And I do the same thing with general plan sketch. Same fields. Because then at some level, if they've gone in and really gone in and edited the data and made it look good and it's still useful, then Matt could just come in and just, I'm going to right click what Cassie did, and I'm going to paste it in my version. I'm done. Because you can copy between versions. And then you say, okay, that one's done. Not only do I kill Matt's version, but I go out and I kill Brian's version and I kill Cassie's version. All at the same time, because it was all part of that one project.
So I would like to learn how to do it first, how to edit on a very basic level. So yes, right, that will get you all of that documentation for that one particular case, so we can kind of dig into how we would actually go about doing that.
Yeah, we will send you like workflows and video, and you can take a look at that. And I would say that would significantly expedite, or maybe even like we will not need to meet again for the next session. But it's like walking through the workflow entirely, and we'll do that. We'll create a video for you, and you can follow along that video and try to do it yourself too. But we can certainly then, after you finish that, then we can try to meet. Well, again, I don't know how much time you'll have, but we want to meet so that you're ready for editing on production. So we should still set a date. The next Wednesday, still meet up. You at least you look at the video. Our goal is that you are saying, okay, ready to edit production at this point of time. And
then I want another little thing I would throw on would be Matt, that as you're designing all this, you're wearing Oculus Rifts, so you can actually see yourself completely immersed in all the buildings and the nice little walkways and the people and stuff. Watch what Brian Sims' team come up with. They're going to show a lot what I'm talking about.
Oh, I believe you. Yeah, I'm waiting to be blown away by what they do, but I'm gonna stick to the basics for right now.
Okay. All right. We'll keep it.
Okay. It's 5:30 and I gotta go. But anything else? Any other follow up for me?
That's it. Please send me those, and then if you have any questions, we're gonna maybe reach out to you, email you or something with any questions that we might have in the process of coming up with the videos for your, training. So.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I have a domain change request. I will send that out to you, Ted.
Okay. What's the domain change?
The ones that we were looking at. So if you populate the code, the abbreviation, the description and the label should populate. So that regarding that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll show you or send you a snapshot on how it works.
Okay. Now this is for planning or for cadastral?
Planning.
Do you guys think you're going to be able to finish cadastral this week? Like where I can take a cut of the data and load it into production?
Yeah, you plan for Friday, right?
Yeah, Friday.
Yes.
Let's take a
I'm gonna
look
work
at it
on
on Thursday. Make sure that everything's, we have a meeting with Cadastral anyway on Thursday, right? So we'll go from there because I don't think we actually created those sketch layers on there.
Yeah.
So we will just create and then go from there, I think.
Oh, you guys haven't done the temporary construction line yet?
Yeah, it's just one layer, two maybe.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking, so on Friday, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take electric down and completely down because I need to run that cool to do the weights. And then when I take it down, I'm going to have to take, I'm going to push it back into production and back into test. And then that becomes the basis of what I'm going to try to, then I'm going to go, okay, I got electric going in production again. I mean, maybe there changes again, but I'm going to, it's practice for me. I'm going to do the same thing for cadastral because I need to calculate the legal points, the doc IDs, the doc links. I tried it last week on Friday and I created a version. I calculated it. It ran fine, took 3 hours to do. But when I went to reconcile and post, I got two different, I did it as me, as T. Cronin. T. Cronin's DBO. So DBO has certain rights and more than regular users. So I tried it as T. Cronin, that didn't work. I tried it as SDE, it didn't work there either. For some reason with the version. So I want to kill the version, figuring I'm going to just calculate it anyway. So I'm going to have to take cadastral down from your cut and then reload it. And then you guys would have the new doc links. But I need to put that doc link, I need to take that cadastral layer down from the GIS maps database so that they can, for the next UAT, whenever, I think it's next week, which is unreal. It's why do we have UAT 1 week, then we have another one the next week. It's all, we're trying to push everything in by the 31st. And it makes everything bad because everything's too hyper sensitive because, oh, we got 3 weeks. We have 2 weeks that are open right now for editing. We literally can go till the 31st. I have stuff I have to do for HR internally in the organization, but you guys literally have until the 31st. So that's why I say you're going to have another meeting for transport. You're going to have another meeting for planning. And I think you're going to want to show Matt a little bit more on the attribute assistant than you would show Eswin, or Elijah or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Because Matt's coming in as like a full-blown planner. He has some GIS experience. We got him involved with this because he's jumped in and wanted to do this stuff. He started doing his own maps and he's got pro running, blah, 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 whatever. And we had a couple people and one of them went to Esri. So we had Jack and we had Matt. They're the two leads in planning. So from what I see, from experience, the people that I've actually watched and how they are able to do GIS, okay, I can use this person. I can use this person. Because you see somebody and they're like fumbling around, they don't know what they're doing. That's going to take time. Matt has the foundation, so did Jack. So I still think you're still going to have to kind of show them a little bit more on why this works that way or whatever. And if we have to do it next week, we do it next week. And if we have to do it the week after, we do it the week after. Hopefully cadastral and electric are done next week. And then you could just focus on transport, traffic, and planning, which shouldn't be minor little meetings, but they have a lot less data.
Yeah.
And I would like you guys to take a look at the topology for traffic because I don't know if I got everything down there. And
I think I didn't see any rules in one of that. I don't remember whether it was, I think transport was, or somewhere they didn't have any topology rules in there specifically.
it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Traffic has a bunch of point data sets. So,
Correct.
Maybe we would do disjoint, must not be disjoint. And then there's a line. I know preferred parking is in there, and that's a line data set. But I just discovered traffic 6 months ago when I was talking to the woman who maintains the data in Academy for something else. Maybe we called her in for data modeling. And she says, oh, yeah, I maintain this data. We're like, oh, I mean, to me, maybe Lisa and Ken knew it, but they didn't tell me. And so it was like, oh, we got a new person that's maintaining the data. Let's bring them in. but she hasn't been to any of the meetings. And I just sent her a meeting last week. Hey, you coming to the meeting? Because I invited her. She probably doesn't know what I'm talking about. So she's probably confused. I should probably reach out to Nathan Mustafa, her boss. But at this point, it's too late. You've already gone this far. And her data is the most simple because most of her data sets are point data.
Right.
I can look at the topology again on that. I didn't really. I'm on call this week, so I just got added like today.
One of the things that was happening also, Ted, I think I sent a post for your on DevOps. I think it was about one of the data sets not being enabled as
Editor tracking.
and you saw that,
Yep,
right?
That's done.
Okay.
I already did that today. Yeah, it's just we're literally at the final tail, the long tail of left of data.
Right.
This is the most simple data sets that still is editing.
These are and sorry, I didn't mean to spend a lot of time on the PowerPoint, but I just thought that okay, this is kind of like setting the ground and everything. So what I will do
I
tomorrow.
think that's fine. But you guys are going to have to add a meeting again, regardless of the video. If they still think you want to sit down and.
Yeah, definitely we will do that. My question is that I mean, depending on the flexibility or availability, if it goes as close to 31st or even after, I mean, I'm okay with that. I guess it's more about like my question would be by 31st everything should be like done as far as like
Yeah.
um
Yeah. But there's still open time next week, and there's still open time the week after that. That's all within the 31st.
Yeah. For me, it's not like it's 31st and I'm done. If people have questions after that, I'm open to answering them, or the post follow-ups. I think ideally should be if it goes beyond 31st, I think that should be still fine. Because
Yeah, but
people
you still
will
have
have
to
questions
train.
as they come up and when they start editing the data, that's going to happen.
Yeah, like what happened with Mike and Elijah. And you
Right.
still have to train Ken on how to do QC.
Yeah.
Ken's a workstation guy. He doesn't know anything about ArcMap. He knows. He did GeoCortex. I mean, he did geometric network with police data, but he's never done it with water utilities. He's never done it with electric. He's never done it with sewer and storm.
Right.
In ArcMap.
That's not necessarily true,
That
Ted.
is 100% true. Ken, have you been editing and QCing water utilities and electric utilities in ArcMap?
No, I have not.
Okay. Have you been doing sewer and storm in ArcMap? Editing in QC?
No, I don't think so. No.
Have you been editing in QC Parcel Fabric in ArcMap? Editing CD Riverside Parcel Fabric in ArcMap?
Yeah, I do have some acquaintance with Parcel Fabric.
But have you been doing it with the City of Riverside data?
No.
Okay. Like I said, Lisa, no, he hasn't. So he still needs QC understanding, and he needs to understand conflicts.
Yeah, well,
Conflict is a training we will give. Definitely, that's something we're planning to. But I just want to see if that can be fit within the October 31st, or because getting the editors to production, I think, was like the highest priority.
I would tell CJ, hey, we have to show Ken how to do QC and editing, and not editing. No, don't say it editing. QC and QC.
Conflicts.
Conflicts.
Yeah, conflict resolution.
Right.
At
Conflict
this point, I'm the one
resolution.
who does all the QC, and I don't want to have to do all the data reviewer stuff. He needs to know how to use data reviewer and verify that the people actually fix the data. That's another exercise he needs to do.
Okay,
Because
well,
he's
the thing is, for the last few, every one of the teams has gone through data reviewer training so far, and they will again. On Thursday we have a data reviewer training.
Yeah.
So that will continue for this other team, and then Ken is part of that training too, I believe, right?
Yeah, but what I'm proposing is that you have a separate one where the data has already been edited and it's already been fixed. Ken
Right.
just needs to have an hour training on verifying that it's actually been fixed.
Okay, this is in context to like, I mean, communications with the editor via the data reviewer, or is it just like checking the data for,
Just checking the data.
just checking the
At
data?
this point, we're going to be emailing back and forth with the editors.
Okay,
At this point, like so over the weekend, I get a calculation for sewer and storm. I didn't go through all the data reviewer stuff because that's going to be Ken's assignment. I just looked at the data. I did a version difference, looked at it, posted it up because I had to do the
we
doc
will,
links.
let's do one thing. At the level of like admin that Ken is looking at, I will come up with a document basically on how he needs to do the QC, or maybe even you, like, what are the different methods by which you will do the QC. We may refer back to some of the, other documents, or put information from there, like geometric network tracing, water, sewer,
sure.
storm, right?
Yeah.
Validations, and then topology, error tracking. So all of those things that you will find, like any kind of polygon data, point line. So everything that's there that we have, I won't mention what layer it is. I will not say water geometric network. Anywhere geometric network, it's more like generalized information,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that we can, but I just want to say that I'm wondering, do you want this all to be done before October 31st, or can we do it after, is the question.
Well, we'll see. Editing has to be done by the 31st with CJ's schedule.
Right.
This technically isn't editing what Ken needs to do, but it's tied into editing. So if there's nothing going well, so Ken's, just so you know, Ken's going to be in a holistic the last week of October. So he's not going to be available that week.
Right. Okay.
Shoot.
I would
Yeah, that's
say
fair.
almost, if we can do some tomorrow or no, next week, then we can do some next week. And if it comes down to it, it's going to be, hey, you got your contract doesn't end until the 31st of December.
Right.
So if we have to do this in November, we have to do it in November.
Technically,
That's
I can
the-
give you the document as soon as possible. Take a look at the document. That will be like one of the things that you can, say overall your QC process, right?
Yeah.
And conflict resolution and managing versions also, you will get a document, right? So that's one more thing that you will have. So you have these documents there. You have
Yeah, I
that
think-
as your like reference manual sort of. And then the next thing would be the training itself. We can do that
Yeah, well,
whenever you're available.
And you could create a couple videos based on the docs, but I still think he needs hands-on.
No,
He needs a
yeah.
little-
My best thing would be to do it in like the hands-on session, and then record it at the same time. That would
and
be
we
the
can at
best
least
thing.
tell CJ editing is done, but now we got to do Ken's admin. Ken needs some admin training. That's what this comes down to. Ken needs some admin training. I don't need it because I have already done it all, but Ken needs it, and Ken's going to be responsible for it all. I'm just Ken's backup.
So is the QC training the same as the admin training, or it's all together in one, right? There's
Yep.
some specific admin tasks that you're doing for ArcFM and things like that. There's going to be your regular database maintenance stuff, which is compress and those kind of things.
Yeah, so that's all going to be scripted. So I have scripts right now for replicas. I have scripts for analyze, compress, indexes. We'll have to rebuild indexes every so often, and maybe once a month. And so that's all going to be in Python that we're just going to automate. I shouldn't say I have them right now. I wrote them already. I got to just find them. I had 80 scripts at the county, or so we're all doing little things. I'm just a geographer who writes Python. I'm not a software developer. So the bottom line is I have all these scripts that does all this stuff, and I'm just gonna find it, download it, and turn it on. So and it's gonna replicas. That's another one, synchronizing both to SDE to SDE, SDE to file geodatabase.
Do you have documentation, Ted, on what you have already so far as this database maintenance procedures are concerned, the best practices and all?
You mean, do I have Python scripts? Can I show you the Python scripts tomorrow of what I have? No. But I do have an analyze compress. I have a replica. I have an index script.
Okay.
Yeah, I just gotta find them and download them. They're all on Box, so.
Okay. What I can say is
But
every.
what you could do is you could still show Ken as this user. You run an analyze, and this is what an analyze does. When you need to compress the data, I'm giving you hints, Ken. You got to log in as this user to do a compress. You can't do the compress with that user, but you can with this user. And so, at least from a manual standpoint, he understands what an analyze is and what a compress is and what a compress actually does. Another thing you could show him would be, right now I have two replicas set up on City Edit. Actually, in the test environment, I have two that are running for storm and sewer. And I have on GS Utility, I have two. One's an SD to SDE for water, and then I have one to a file geodatabase. And so you can kind of show him the manual process of how to build a replica, and then how to, we'll have to build some sample data because Somas has got every data set locked up with the referencing stuff that they're doing. We could create a sample data with just some junk data that you could show him how to build a replica and then how to synchronize it after the fact. I mean, this is stuff easily I could show him how to do, but to me, it seems like you guys are showing the editors, you kind of need to show the admins what they need to do. And then this just helps me. I don't have to show Ken.
And
Yeah.
we end up with some documentation available.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
you guys
am I able to listen in and watch just so I can learn terminology?
Sure, you can watch.
I just want to hear the terminology. 'Cause
Ben would be doing all the exercises, but you can watch. And to me, I think we need all that. And then the other would be having conflicts, going over the itemized, the different levels of resolving conflicts. We kind of went over that today with Ed, but I don't know if Ken picked up on it, where you can literally do at the object level, at the class level, or at the version level, right? Where I could take the pre-reconcile or take the conflict, and I'm going to choose this one over that one, and I can do it at this level. I can do it at one level up, and then even one level above that. And you could go over those. Each of these are like little sessions you could do in a little quick class. What else is there? So for replicas, you could kind of go over the differences between a version replica and an archive replica, and then what an archive is. And then the geodatabase history toolbar would be another thing that he could look at. Like I said, I could train him on all this stuff, but it'd be easier to get you guys to document all this stuff for him and for Lisa, because at some point Lisa may be doing all this.
I think I'll
So-
start off with the documentation. Let me put at least some of this, and most of the documentation I think at this point will come from like Esri help files and everything, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
But after that, as you keep moving forward, like if once you see the base document, you say, oh, this is not what we do, this is a different way that we do, because I really don't know about all the different replicas that you currently have. All these days we've been only focused on like what the editors are doing and how they can edit the production,
know.
right? So
Maybe I could give you guys a demo of what replicas are.
no, I mean in the sense that what are the different replicas that you're currently using and what needs to be maintained and so on, right? So it's something that needs to be documented, obviously, because if something does happen, like
If something happens to me, Ken needs to be able to step in and take over for everything that I know.
so in
And I'm
that,
always going to refer back. If anybody asks me, where's the documentation? I'm going to say, look at this. Esri's already created it for me. It's right here.
right,
The help
right.
graph is fantastic.
Ted, your specific structure, it wouldn't hurt to show us what you have specifically, and that way we know that to include that. And also, I'm just assuming that we are able to get to all of whatever you have on there, because we have that Arc user on that machine, and we can probably,
Yeah. In the test environment, I only have 2 replicas
mhm.
because everything is the way they set up their services. Everything is referencing. So I'd have to shut down and kill and break the web application during UAT, and I don't think a lot of people would be happy if I did that. But after UAT, then I'll have maybe a little more capability to do that. And
Okay.
so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take down Cadastral on Friday, break it, redo the calculations. That's why I'm hoping you guys are done, because I want to be able to load it to production. But I'm also going to load it to GIS Map. I'm going to build a replica with it based on the version you guys connect to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to go in and I'm going to delete all the versions that are out there, because I'm going to take Cadastral completely down and reload it, just like I have to do with Electric. So all the versions that are in connecting on City, just so you know, I'm giving you guys a heads up. All the data that's on City Edit or GIS Edit, all those versions are getting deleted on that box, just like all of them are going to get deleted on Utility. Because I'm taking them both down to do some calculations. I'll reload them back to test environment, but I don't want to do it this week because it's a short week for most people, and it's UAT week. And then what I want to do is I'll build a replica with Cadastral, and maybe I might even do it with Electric, so we'll have other replicas to play with. Because right now we have just Storm and Sewer.
Okay. I think what I will do is take the best practices, right, for GA-based maintenance and everything, and then including like reconcile post and the conflicts. We come up with that. We document the different steps, right? And then once you see the document, of course, you can always go and change the database names and all that, right? But at the same time, there will be some things that are missing in there, and you let us know what they are, and then we can always go and add.
Okay.
It may be something that you have enabled and I didn't really look at it or couldn't find it because my settings, I mean the development box, and I don't have. So it could be anything, but I'm saying to the best, I'm going to look at Esri's best practices, and then that's my basis of document. So that's
Okay.
something we can go from. And I'm going to go back to this GoToMeeting and then look at all of the topics. At least I would say by tomorrow you can at least expect something like an outline of the topics.
Okay.
See? And how much depth we go, I mean, that will depend on your needs. Really, when you said versioning, it's kind of pretty detailed, but when you say analyze, it could be just one thing that we talk about analyzing at a time, and then you can have a script that would probably do it as many times as you'd like. But the basic concept will be explained, and
that's right. That's all I want. I want him to know which user he needs to use to do an analyze, because it's a different user that does than does compress.
Right.
Right. So compress is this user and analyze is this user. What is an analyze? What does it do? How do you do it? Boom, done. Now you do compress. What is a compress? How do you do it? What's involved with it? Da, 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 da. Here's a little write-up, and then boom, there's maybe a little video. Here's how you do a compress. Here's the user you have to use for a compress. Here's the user you have to use for an analyze.
Right.
There are certain things you can do with this user that you can't do with that user.
Yeah.
He has access to K-Alphizer, but he also has access to ARC, and he has access to SDE. What are the differences between the different roles?
Yeah.
One's an editor, one's an SD administrator, one's an owner. What are the differences between those 3 users?
Right.
I know, but he may not know. So to me, it's like break it down. And he's not an SDE expert.
Yeah.
He hasn't been doing multi-version editing for the last 15 years. And so it'd be good training for him to understand what's the difference between an editor, an owner of the data, and the SD administrator.
Okay. Yeah, I get the idea. It's like taking what he already has the knowledge base with which he has worked on previously with Cadme, thorough understanding of different kinds of data sets
Yeah,
and
but
everything.
I'm
But
a,
when it
I'm a
comes,
firm,
Mhm.
he has that experience in CADME.
right.
I'm a firm believer that I would go into this that both Lisa and Ken don't know anything. And we want to teach them from the ground up on how to administer a database.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
all that little stuff that you have to do. And they need to understand that, you know, and then maybe they already have experience. I don't care.
Yeah, and
I just-
I don't have any, he's
User-
done more than I have, but I.
Yeah, I do have some experience, but you know, it's been long enough.
Time. Yeah, right, yeah.
Needs to
How-
all be revisited. So.
Right. How about user administration and anything needs to be done on the SQL side? Backend.
Yeah, I don't think we need to show all that.
On the backend.
I mean,
Okay.
we're not going to do we're not setting up an SDE config. We're not doing a config thing. I think he's got experience with that with Oracle. We're probably not going to do that with SQL Server. I was told long ago by a member who used to work at ACS that Ken knows. Her name is Kim Peter, who said literally 10 people in the world config their they changed their config file for SQL Server. Like 10 people in the world, and she's on the SDE team. And so it's like the NSA, the BLM, huge agencies, they might tweak it. But literally 10 people in the world of using it. And I was like, okay, I didn't do it for...
No. I'm not talking about the config. I'm talking about user management from SQL. Sometimes people add users in SQL,
Okay,
like you asked your DBO to add, right?
Yeah, we don't
your
have...
DBO's responsibility, the SQL
Yeah.
Server DBO, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
what I
our
meant.
SQL Server DBO is still going to be the one in charge.
So,
Okay.
so there's some things that you can show them what... I don't know. Let me think about that. You could get to the point where you could show them why this user can disconnect users. We could show them, because there are GP tools on how to create a view, but that revolts back to, does he have the permissions to create a view? He's not going to be creating users. He's not going to be moving users to roles. But what he can learn, what you can teach him is how to add privileges to a feature data set.
Okay. Yeah, for a user, right? That's
Yeah. I think that's fine.
I would like to document your groups, your users, and those kind of things. That may be a good thing that you should have to anyway.
Really helpful. Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, that sounds
Because
totally
you,
valid.
Ted, have been, whenever we did this pre-training, we had people, that you were adding to the groups and stuff like that. So, okay.
And I have a different, like, what are the different, I have users for the edit database in a role, but then I have it more granular for GIS maps, GIS jobs, GIS check. Just because I don't need it, I don't need just a user for cadastral. I just need a user that has access to the reviewer. So we can kind of go over roles, I guess. You want me to document all that?
No, you should probably have it for your own this thing, because who's belonging where. I mean, of course, at any point, I don't know if you can go and look in the back end, but maybe your DBO can and let you know who's having.
No, I don't have access to all that.
Okay.
That's one of the nice things I have with DBO is if he creates a user, I can go ahead and add it to the role.
Okay.
I can actually create roles. I might be able to. No, I don't think I can.
Anything I do will be from the ArcGIS and Arc catalog end.
Yeah.
It will
that's
not
fine.
be, and then Arc toolbox maybe.
I wanted you to show us how to do backups. How we can do differential backups, full backups, log backups. How we could set up a cluster on the SQL Server. Would you be able to show us all that too?
You are not in the DBO arena, right?
Show us how to write SQL, and maybe how to build SQL and views and stuff. Maybe you can show us that.
We can do that, but I don't think that's your objective,
No,
right?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know you're kidding. I knew you were kidding, but we certainly have done that. But we,
That would be like a special class.
Just be careful. You're going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, I mean, then you get to the point where you know,
best practices, Esri. That's my starting point. Let me send that to you, document, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
That's
Bye.
fine.